What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with a Jiu-Jitsu phenom, an ADCC veteran, Mr. PJ Barch. Thank you, brother, for coming on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you prefer Paul or?
Paul is fine.
Okay. Okay, Paul. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
So I want to start off our conversation with asking you the same question that we start off every single show with, which is, how has Jiu-Jitsu impacted your mental health since you started training?
That's a big question, man. Do you want stories? You want me to like I wouldn't know where to start, man. Jiu-Jitsu, I would say that it started more like with wrestling, if we could go all the way back to there.
Yeah, of
Is that
course.
something we can do?
Dude, of
Because I
course.
mean, I see it as like a similar organization and a similar kind of feeling for me and stuff. Um, I I think that personally, man, it starting off in high school was something that I I had trouble finding my exact niche of where I was fitting in, and I had a ton of energy as a kid, growing up and stuff like that, and nowhere, not a lot of healthy places to put all that energy. Um, as far as like, I mean, I was gonna get into trouble, and I was getting into trouble all the time. And I didn't really know where to put all that energy, and I didn't find a good grouping of like kind of healthy people on a good path that also had the same type of energy that I had, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, right.
the kids without that energy were kind of they were a little more maybe stable, and their households were, like, not that my household was that unstable, but like, they just they could sit in class and study well and go home and eat their dinner with their family and this and that, but I was out running amok everywhere, and getting myself into trouble, and not really sure where I was fitting in and stuff like that. And I think that wrestling was one of the first groups of people where I felt like not only was I really expending a lot of that energy and giving me some sort of purpose and things to look forward to and things to stay healthy for, and be disciplined for, but it was also giving me like a group of people that were like-minded, and so like helping to kind of keep you on that path as well. And so, I think the same could be said for jiu-jitsu. It's been kind of my whole life has been a good um, it's been really important for me to grapple. I have numerous times in my life, falling off the wagon in different ways, and kind of being recentered by grappling, and it playing a large role in it. It's not the answer. It's not going to like per se solve your, family trauma, or, like whatever kind of mental health is not, it might not be the cure all for you, but it's going to get you on the right track and hopefully around the right people. And it has with me a lot in the past. I could elaborate on plenty of other things, but maybe you have some more questions that can lead me anywhere too.
No, I'd love if you elaborated a little more. Like, was there a specific time that you noticed that, let's say, your training in wrestling or in jiu-jitsu really, I guess, set you up for life in some sort of way? Like, I guess maybe a better question would be, how do you feel like these things prepare you for life outside of the mats?
The community aspect is really important, and it's not just about like having friends per se, because you can kind of have friends a lot of places. I think that when we're when we're rolling around with each other and trying to kill each other, and doing all this stuff, there's a little bit more of an intimate bond, and I think that like I I wasn't always taught how to be so intimate with people, you know what I mean, and be so physical and stuff like
Right.
that. And I don't think it was like a major feature in my family, or maybe I just avoided it growing up for whatever reason. But so I do feel that like, being able to like kind of roughhouse with your friends like that was a way that I connected a lot with people. And then also, not only that, but it brings like a truth to the relationship as well. When there's an honest pecking order between you and another person of like, hey, like I could kill you, or hey, you can kill me. there's like a very mutual respect going on between those two individuals at that point, because we kind of already got to the grassroots of like who could kill who, you know, and in the situation. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like very primal in a sense of like, you know, like you meet somebody at an office doing marketing and advertising, and it's like, hey, I could do better advertising than you. No, I think I can do it, but I could kill you. But no, I don't know if you're the one that could kill me or not. You know what I mean? And so there's always these like flexing going on that doesn't necessarily have isn't attributed to like direct action, if that makes sense. And um,
Yeah.
I think that when we group ourselves with people that you know, it's pretty clear where we stand with each other on the mats, we can have a much more honest relationship with one another, and then like, you know, be able to see you know, a greater truth in yourself and in individuals around you. And you know, and a lot of times those people are on like a similar path to you, whether it's like their own mental health or their own work stuff or this and that. We all kind of have these different things. And you know, we're showing up and being disciplined for something that could be arbitrary or could not be arbitrary to you, you know, like you know,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, it's all pretty arbitrary, like most of the things that we do in life. And then me like grappling another human on mats for like a small niche of people in the world that actually care about it is pretty arbitrary in a sense. You know, it doesn't matter too much, you know, um, but it is still a goal that I'm setting, you know, to show up that many times. And
Yeah.
you know, it just so happens that I'm good enough at it that I can get paid for it, whereas like, you know, maybe others at my gym are paying to do it, but we're all kind of the same, where we're just setting like these in this matrix that we live in of a world of like um that's changed a lot from how we probably evolved. It gives us a more a, a simple, clear path of like, here's how you get better at something, and here's how you're disciplined about something, and you get to learn how to improve yourself in this very clear way. The learning curve in jiu-jitsu is just so high. You know, it's like you come in and you just get fucking wrecked the first time you train with somebody,
Right.
and then instantly it's like, oh no, but next time just do this, and then you're like, oh yeah, grab here. Well, look, the guy didn't kill me. You know what I mean? He literally didn't simulate killing me. You know, and then now I just saved my own life in one class. And the so the learning curve is just like unbelievable. It's like almost like you're simulating this death over and over again with a person, and you're each time you get to see like, wow, there's like really rapid improvement in this. And sometimes people are freaking 25, 35 years old and they haven't improved in anything in their life in since high school. You know what I mean? Like they haven't seen that kind of
Yeah.
improvement in their life since high school. And then they're doing this thing for fun where they're killing each other and they're freaking losing weight and they're looking pretty good. And then they're like learning that they can kill other people, and they're getting a little more confident with themselves. And then, you know, they get a girlfriend and quit, um, which happens all too often, man, all too
Yep.
often.
It's true.
But
It's true.
so you know, it was the same for me in high school, man. Like I was in fights like all through middle school. You know, I was fighting everybody and getting in fights all the time, and was like deeply insecure about whether I could beat people up or not, or whether girls liked me or not, or whatever the case, you know. And I had all this energy to need to put somewhere, and I was in fights all the time. You know, I was getting beat up, or I was beating people up. I was rarely. I was trying to like stand up to bullies, you know, and uh,
Yeah.
I was failing most of the time, which I can tell you a couple stories about that as well. And it it wasn't until I learned how to wrestle. And then by the time I'm like maybe like a sophomore, and I'm pretty good at wrestling by then, because I started at a young age, but I sucked, like I was weak and I was small and I was technical, but as soon as somebody was stronger than me, like they would just ragdoll me, and some people hit puberty at a
Yeah.
younger age. There was a lot of corn-fed white boys where I was from, and a lot of black kids with six-pack abs at age 12. And I wasn't quite there yet in puberty, I think. And it wasn't until like my physique started to match my skill level around like the 10th or 11th grade that I was actually getting pretty good at it. By then, I didn't fight anybody. Like I stopped fighting people. It
Yeah.
wasn't in me anymore to need to prove anything, and I lost that bit of insecurity. I mean, of course, like there's still tons of insecurities in different realms and stuff like that, but I definitely didn't feel like I needed to like, um, do things like to prove myself in that
Yeah.
sense, I guess, and I was proving it on the mats,
Yeah.
and just taking it back to like these kids that come in like pretty deeply insecure with themselves, or these guys, and they're whether it's their physique or like what they can physically do, since it is so primal and in our nature to be able to learn how to fight or to kill somebody or whatever. And you see these guys just transform, and I saw it firsthand. I didn't I say all of this, and it's funny to me because I had a bit of an existential crisis, if you want to hear about it at some point, where as a coach, I was I was kind of gifted the gym that I took over. Like I had never even really taught jiu-jitsu before. Um, done some coached some wrestling and stuff like that, but I had never even really taught jiu-jitsu before. And just one day, the guy who owns our gym, 10th Planet San Diego, when I was under Boogie, like I had just gotten my black belt, and he asked me what I did for a living. I was like, I just run ballet, like, going back to school, I think, like yada, yada, yada. And he was like, do you want to run a gym or take over a program or something like that? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not? And so it was just kind of accidental endeavor. And, and, the whole first like 6 months to a year there, I I couldn't get on board with what I saw Boogie doing, where Boogie, who's my coach, gave me my black belt, was really pushing these guys to show up more, pushing these guys to compete more, pushing these guys to like, strive for goals in the gym and this and that. Because if I'm being 100% honest, like I looked at them and I was like, man, maybe you should go back to school, or maybe you should, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like there was maybe better pursuits for them to put all their time into, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at this guy, he's like 24 years old or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna make it in the ADCC, like I don't know if this guy that should put all of his time into this pursuit. Um, but man, did I have my mind changed? You know what I mean? Because when I saw people really start dedicating themselves to it, and when I was helping to foster that, I saw people that really transform themselves through dedicating themselves to jujitsu, through, like getting better at this pursuit, setting arbitrary goals for yourself, because your goal of competing at whatever tournament, name it, and my goal of winning a world championship at the end of the day are about the same thing. Like maybe I earn money, you pay money, but like it doesn't, we're doing the same exact thing. You can do something else to earn your money. You know what I mean? So we're doing like virtually the same thing. And so what makes me any better? Nothing really. It's just, at the end of the day, we're just kind of setting goals for ourselves and finding purpose and meaning and getting better at something, and and bringing people around us and stuff. And the amount of people that I have seen uh, really transform themselves physically and mentally in that first year, I was sold, you know what I mean? I was sold on jiu-jitsu, and it took me to like running a program for a full year to even like fully believe it, you know what I mean? Because I did have like I said, a bit of an existential crisis a lot of times where I saw these guys, you know, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to like I wasn't sure if it was the right thing for them, you know? And then I realized that, like, for the most
Yeah.
part, it is the right thing for them. Maybe not in all cases, you know what I mean? And like, maybe there is, like, you know, there's a lot of aspects to life, and there's a lot of ways to learn and grow and get better and whatever else. Jiu-jitsu is not going to heal and cure it all and fix you in every dimension, you know what I mean? But, and I learned that firsthand for sure, but it can be a really good catalyst and a really good tool and a great outlet. Yeah, I mean, I think I would recommend it to just about anybody in the world, you know?
Me too, man. And I really feel you on what you're talking about here because I just started teaching here at the Jiu-Jitsu Outlet Academy, which has been open now for 6 weeks. And I feel like you're spot on. Like, I mean, I'm obviously newer in that journey, but I've had the same sort of epiphany in a way that like it's teaching gives you a whole different outlook on the martial arts, and you start to see it from a completely different angle, you know, and it becomes more of a confidence building thing or a personal development thing because like I mean most of the people that walk through the doors, you're right, they're probably not going to make it to ADCC, and that's okay because it's going to be something that the pursuit of whatever goal, whatever excellence they're trying to achieve, it's going to bleed over into those other areas of their life, and whatever they do after that, it's going to make a gigantic impact. And man, this is something I wanted to ask you about, but as you started competing at a higher level, what was that evolution like? Like, take us a little bit from, you know, what was it like going from being this kid who was struggling with confidence growing up to now being considered one of the top grapplers in the world, basically? Like, what was that like for you?
Um, I'll give you like a brief rundown of the beginning and then a couple things for the jiu-jitsu realm so we can kind of focus in there a little bit. You know, when I you know, I built myself into a halfway decent wrestler in high school. You know, winning states and placing it at national tournaments and all American and things like that. And Probably was like a bit more talented than uh, I had showcased, especially later, you know. I think I had a few really good years, a couple really good years in wrestling where I put the work in. I'm a very obsessive person. And while we're talking about mental health and stuff like that, I mean, I'm also like 7 years deep into therapy off and on and have suffered from OCD and, you know, all sorts of kind of little things here and there. That I don't like to like necessarily put in a box, but the obsessive component is definitely there for me, and it's something that has affected me in a lot of ways. And you know, so I had a couple of years very obsessively like using jujitsu as like wrestling as like more of a healthy outlet to that energy, and um, but you know, as time went, the people that I was the teams that I had been a part of later in high school, that those same communities that I had put a lot of time into were also into like drugs and stuff, and so I quickly saw like a much quicker route to distraction and to you know, helping with the mental health, you know what I mean, the things that you do, like you don't want to deal with, and whatever else in life, the insecurities, the anxieties, and all this kind of stuff. And drugs were like a really fun, easy outlet to put that energy into, and it happened a lot quicker than like wrestling did. Wrestling was like really hard, and you know, oxycontin was one pill away from like feeling you know, the state championship. You know what I mean? It was that easy to get that same feeling. And so, you know, I kind of it quickly all happened in high school there. Um, and then into college, and that's kind of where I kind of didn't make it through college wrestling, a full 4 years there, and kind of didn't even really make it through college just because I was fucking up a lot and doing a lot of drugs and you know, putting myself around the wrong people and things like that. And you know, I I moved to Hawaii to finish college, and my mom was like just kind of fed up with me being at the house because I just kind of went home after college didn't work out. I don't even remember if I dropped out or even talked to anybody. I just kind of went home and kept doing the same stuff. And she was like, "Hey, I'll buy you a plane ticket if you go somewhere to college." And she just knew I needed to get out of there. And so I go to Hawaii, and it's going pretty well. Like surfing was a good outlet for me out there, and I was cleaning up my life a little bit and staying focused, and wasn't, but I was still kind of intermingling in trouble for sure, quite a bit. It wasn't until like they finally convinced me to go to an MMA practice to wrestle, that I was kind of starting to find my niche again. Like it was very like it was very clear to me like right away, like, oh, here's my people, like haven't seen you guys for a while. You know what I mean? Here's my outlet. Here's my like sweaty, kill each other people. And so man, again, it was MMA at the time, and school, and you know relationships and girls and things like that. And so I wasn't entirely focused on becoming like a UFC champion per se, but I was when I moved to San Diego. I did have like a good head on my shoulders by then. I had some fights in Hawaii and stuff like that, MMA. And by the time I moved here, it was like, hey, look, if I'm not going to use my degree, then I better fucking do this in MMA. But I was struggling to find the right team here for MMA, and I was struggling to, make it happen how I'd like. And I was having concussions, and things weren't going so hot on the MMA front. But I just kept training jiu-jitsu, and I was just good at it. And I didn't really know like I didn't know what the goal was with it, because I don't think there was much goals at the time either. But like it was, I was going to be the best at it. I was going to like really, really work hard and be the best. Boogie pushed me a lot to keep showing up and doing that stuff. So anyways, like I start progressing and getting better. And I'll tell you a couple of stories. Like the first one is a good example of like, I won, or I didn't win. I had some big matches on this competition, or like this big stage called Kasai. I don't know if you remember Kasai. Um,
Oh yeah, I remember
Sweet.
Kasai.
Okay, so I did this Kasai one, and I had a good match with Hanato Canuto, and I beat Victor Silverio, and I had some good matches, and I kind of came out of nowhere, and good, you know what I mean? And then prior to that, like I had one couple little EB rules things, one little bit and this and that, and so I gave up on school because I was going to go back to grad school. So I gave up on school, gave up on just out like everything but jiu-jitsu. Even lost years at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm all in on jiu-jitsu. This is it. This is my life. I'm teaching jiu-jitsu, I'm training jiu-jitsu, and I'm competing in jiu-jitsu. And fast forward a little bit, and it's the first time I do the ADCC trials in the East Coast, and um, I'm already like kind of a little bit mentally like not great. My OCD was a little bad at the time, like from the relationship not being so well, and then like I think just not having a very like balanced life, and having like, putting so many eggs in one basket. And I was going into like the semifinals match. I was having a good tournament so far, and I was going against William Tackett, and I tore my ACL in the match. And I end up like still winning the match or whatever. And I was scheduled for the next weekend in to do like a Kasai super fight with can't remember the guy's name, but a good grappler at the time. And so I tear my ACL, and I didn't realize how much of a detriment this would be to me, because, as I said, I had just put all my eggs in one basket, and including, like everything, you know what I mean? I put everything into it, and I was on my first upswing. And during that time, I did a lot of reflection, and I studied a lot of Eastern religion and therapy and whatever, a lot of stuff. It was a tough time, and I really got to dive into like why I do what I do. Like what is my purpose behind this competing that I do, and what I'm doing with it and stuff like that. And that was like a really big turning point for me, because when I finally got better, and I did a lot of physical therapy, and I took care of it really well. I didn't have the same chip on my shoulder that I had prior to that. This need to prove myself, I guess. I had kind of done a lot of inner work that made me realize that um, a lot of that was coming from a place of still from insecurity, at least at the time, because I was starting to get validation through the jiu-jitsu because I was winning things and people were liking me, right? And so like here I am, like I took this thing that I really loved, and was helping me in so many ways coming up, um, and then here I am, and I'm receiving the bulk of my validation and things like that through competing and through doing good at it, and then that was like ripped away, and I was like, oh, you know what, maybe I wasn't like quite enjoying it like I was, like this became like something else to me a little bit at some point, when I went all into it. And so I lost that chip, and I lost my first couple of matches back, when I finally competed again, which I competed a little too soon too. Like, I mean, after an ACL surgery, like competing at 6 months is pretty raw still. But I jumped right back in, and because I felt like I wanted to, or I needed to, because I had all this momentum, and I didn't want to lose it. But I didn't have that same thunder of that chip on my shoulder, and I was a little bit lost, I think. And it took me a bit of time to get back to the reasoning again, and I think it's still been like 4 years of figuring this out all the way, you know what I mean, what my purpose in all this is, and why I do what I do, and everything like that. But like to always like recenter back to that learning process and enjoying it and doing it like a hobbyist does it, like what did I do when I first went into the gym? It was like, oh, it was like try to learn how to kill and not get killed, and hang out with your buddies, and get better at this thing, and do it just because it's like it's fun for you and it's good for you, and you enjoy doing this thing, and not because you're gonna prove to the people that you can win ADCC trials, or that you're this or you're that thing, because that was clearly the wrong reason for me. Maybe for some people they can hold on to that, you know what I mean, and that can work for them, but for me that wasn't it. And so that happened, but I find myself again, man, and I find the fun in it, and I find everything really well. And actually, like a similar thing happened to me again, where I went through a really tough time, and and I was as well like starting to build up again, and I get put on 2 Who's Number One cards, and it was exactly during a tough time. I didn't want to take the matches. I didn't feel it in my heart that I wanted to take the matches, but it was again another situation of like, the people are depending on me. I need to do this kind of situation, to prove myself or something. And at the same time, there was a lot of publicity around it, and a lot of people, they do a lot of like press conferences and this and that and whatever, And I totally shit the bed in both matches, Andrew Wiltz and Nicky Ryan. I wasn't myself. I didn't do those matches for fun. I didn't go out there to try to kill him, and I went out there not to lose, and I went out there, you know, not in my center of why I do what I do. I did it confused about that again. I did it because, um, whatever. I didn't want to lose momentum, this and that, and the other thing. And so, when I enjoy this process and I put the time in correctly, um, that's it brings the best version of me, whether it's in on the mats or off the mats too. And I prior to this ADCC, um, I put the right mindset in the whole time, and I decided, like, you know what, like, let's just eliminate distractions and get get better at this thing. You know what I mean? Like, how do I figure out these rules? How do I cater to these rules? How do I get better at the things within this rule set that makes me, a formidable competitor for this thing? And it had nothing to do with needing to win or needing to do this or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like, those are goals, and I can set those, but, like, I was also able to, like, really mm, hone in on the beauty of what this has always been for me, and that is, like, the learning process, the growing process, the relationships that you build through those learning and growing processes. You know what I mean? Like, even just in the ADCC camp, like, I got a new strength and conditioning coach, and built a really good relationship with him, and I never really done that before, and the people at that gym over there. And then, and now, like, one of them that I met over there is now, like, teaching at my gym, and then doing the Justin Flores thing, and meeting the guys over at Legion, and now I'm good friends with them and Keenan and different guys like that, and now we have, like, built good relationships and camaraderie on that, and at the same time, I'm focused, and I'm disciplined, and my diet's going well, and I feel like I have purpose, and it's definitely when I'm having the best version of myself, is when I'm doing these things for the right reasons, and not when I'm concerned about, you know what type of validation I can get through the result of the competition. So hopefully some of that makes sense, but that's, like, a bit of a long-winded version.
No, thank you so much for sharing, man. I really appreciate you and your story. And you mentioned Eastern religion before, and I'm really into that kind of stuff as well as Hermeticism and kind of Western philosophy. But one of the things that they talk about in the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the sacred texts of Hinduism, is this idea that you don't have a right to the outcomes of your labor. You just have a right to the labor itself. And it's kind of this concept of, like, we're not entitled to anything. Like, even if you work for it and you achieve something, like, whatever, at the end of the day, we're all going to die. And kind of like you were saying, at the end of the day, everyone's still a human. We're all still just in this pursuit, and you're not entitled to anything in this world. And really the only thing that is promised by God or the divine or whatever you want to call it is just that we will keep having this experience, and that we're going to keep having these sorts of activities that we can do, and we can find our purpose in it. And it's something my wife and I talk about a lot, but, like, you kind of have to make your purpose in life. Like, there's no such thing as purpose necessarily. I mean, you get to decide what that is. And I feel like we all have to find it for ourselves. And it's really beautiful, man, how you were able to kind of talk about how, like, when you're leaning into fear or doing it for ego, that's when your jiu-jitsu actually suffers. But when you're losing yourself in that process, then suddenly you're, winning match of the year and this, that, the other thing, or you're competing at ADCC, the highest level. And you know what I mean, man? That's freaking awesome how you're able to kind of put that together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny how much those philosophers 2,000 years ago plus have said things that are just, I mean, they've never stopped being true. Like, it's just incredibly to me that these guys were in a completely different world doing completely different things, and are saying things that can still apply so deeply to the meaning of anything that we're doing today, you know, and it's just a reflection of that type of thought processes and how true and how real that is, you know, and I think that like, you know, not all texts and all thought processes and you know scripts and whatever like can go across the board so clearly and so cleanly like that. And you know we have sayings like I don't know what your quote was again, from the Hindu, but you know it's saying is like things like we say today, like enjoy the process, you know what I mean, or like in wrestling we say embrace the grind, you know what I mean, and that's kind of the same concept, just in a more new age and applied to our type of thought, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We don't quite know why we say those things, you know, enjoy, like embrace the grind in wrestling, but it's exactly what you just said, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
because the result at the end of the day is more or less meaningless. It's like an empty vessel, a void, you know. It's like it's a cool thing to put on your wall or this and that, but at the end of the day, it's just fueling an egotistical pursuit that is limitless, you know. It doesn't,
Right.
you can't fill that cup forever. And uh and and if you're just always in a pursuit of filling a cup up, you know, like, are you in that process and present in that moment? And so like that's where like I've noticed, you know, the different times in my life, and I've learned a lot. And you know, could have never had a conversation like this 5 years ago, you know, like where I didn't quite understand what it meant to be present, you know, I didn't quite know what it meant to be a part of the process. You know, I'd hear these things, and you know people would speak on them and this and that, and you know you get it like, but you don't get it until you experience it, until it's affected you in some kind of way, you know.
Yeah.
You could watch jujitsu videos all fucking day, but until you get choked out, it's really difficult to know how to defend a guillotine. You
Right.
know, it comes through
Yeah.
experience.
I've always heard that understanding plus experience equals wisdom. And I thought, I don't know where I heard that, but that rings true for me, you know? And man, I got to run here soon because we're about to start kids class, but I had one more question for you, man. Especially just kind of off of what you said earlier. I know you were talking earlier about you struggled with drugs, you struggled with OCD. I'm diagnosed with OCD myself, and I'm also on the autism spectrum, but OCD has been a real plague for me. And, you know, especially with all the intrusive thoughts, was just having a lot of intrusive thoughts the last couple of weeks, actually, because I've been under a lot of stress. And that's what I noticed they kind of pick up. And for people who don't have OCD, they don't understand, like, the intrusive thoughts are fucked up. Like, they're not just like minorly intrusive. They're like, you know, the worst possible thing you could possibly imagine, just popping into your head randomly, just often, as so often that they diagnose you with something. So I just want to ask you, man, like, just to bring this to a point, like, just let's say there's someone listening to this and maybe they're where you were long ago, where they're struggling with their mental health. Maybe they're hooked on alcohol or drugs, or they're using something to cope with that. Like, what advice would you give them? Obviously, you've achieved a lot since then. Like, what would you say to that person who might be struggling with those sorts of things?
I mean, for one, like look for resources and help. You know, that would probably be like a really big start to this. You know what I mean? Whether it's you know, I don't know, books, mentorship, YouTube, therapy, you know, whatever brings you some sort of some sort of help, because you do need some guidelines. You know what I mean? And I also think that like uh looking for quick external fixes on anything is it's just going to kick the can down the road and make it worse, you know. And there's been many times that I've used all sorts of distractions or whatever to kick the can down the road on how I'm feeling, whether I'm obsessing about something or whatever is going on in my life, and looking for some kind of a quick fix that could get my mind off of that, something like very dopaminergic, you know, like something that like you know what I mean, like I don't have to worry about that fucking thing anymore. um Instead of like you know, going inward a little bit, and that's not, it's difficult to do without the resources, you know what I mean. And that's what I said, you know, about like whatever it is, like reading therapy, like CBT, I don't know, whatever it is that suits your fancy, you know what I mean. But going inward, and not necessarily looking externally to find a quick fix to solve those problems for you is going to be huge. And like always being able to train and get that energy out and put yourself into like some sort of healthy patterns and healthy pursuits is it can be life changing. And even if it's arbitrary, it can 100% still be life changing. So keep training, set goals for yourself, and find resources and go inward. Like there's a lot to learn still for myself, and it never fucking ends, as you know. And we are just fucking on this hot spinning ball of lava in space, and it's all pretty arbitrary. But at the end of the day, like, we have to enjoy our days, and we're gonna do that a lot better, I think, if we're doing it in a healthy way.
That was beautifully said. And I feel like the big thing I heard from you was taking responsibility. Like, you got to take responsibility for that evolution. You got to go within and make a decision to heal, make a decision to get over it. And like what you're talking about, you did therapy, you did jiu-jitsu, obviously, MMA, like, you had all these different ways to deal with that. And, if someone's listening to this and they struggle, like, that was my big takeaway too. Like, when I was going through all this stuff years ago and I having panic attacks every day, was I had to realize that, like, it was my responsibility to fix that. And that was some of the best advice I've ever gotten from one of my martial arts teachers too, is he told us, you're responsible for your training. You're responsible for coming to class. It's not the instructor's responsibility to make you good, is what he told us. He was like, my responsibility is to teach class. And he's like, it's not my responsibility if you master the technique. Like, that's on you. If you want to become a master, that's on you. And that, I feel, that's kind of what I heard, man.
It sounds like he has really good, healthy boundaries, man. That's because that's like something I struggle with, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really freaking cool. Because I'm glad that had an impact on you, and honestly, I just learned something too, man. So, for sure.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. And is there anything else you'd like to talk about, or anything you want to promote that you got going on? Like, let us know a little bit more about what you got going on in life.
No, I just got some big matches coming up, man. One each month from here on out, pretty much, September, October, November, and December. So I'm trying to stay focused and get my head in the game, and really, like, dial in again and start enjoying that process, like we talked about. I have a gym here in San Diego in Chula Vista called 10th Planet South Bay. If you guys are ever in the area, like, anybody listening, please come check us out, or tell your friends or whatever. You're all welcome. And I think that if anybody is struggling or whatever, you can reach out as well. I'm pretty fucking busy, and but when I see that it's something that's really near to my heart and stuff like that, I tend to respond. So I'm always open to it.
PJ, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. And hey, if you're listening and you want to connect with PJ, go check out the links down below, and I'll put all the links to what you just talked about. So, man, thanks so much thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Paul.